And continuing with the lecture, one of the aspects that I find hardest to cope with is to understanding the immensity of the impact that our current practices in the using of the digital paraphernalia, that is, these computers that we're using right now as I'm recording, as you're listening, all the computers that we have and use around ourselves at the university, our cell phones, our tablets, all of that comes at a price that goes well beyond what we pay in store for the device. And some of those impacts are not paid by anyone else but people that shouldn't be paying for it. Let me tell you what I mean by this.
10 minutes drive. Men, women and children pick it over, searching for scrap metals that can then be resold. But at the same time, they expose themselves to the waste's highly toxic materials like lead and phosphorus gas. Those materials have made this site, according to environmental NGO Green Cross, one of the most polluted places on Earth.
It's just a poisoned graveyard of electronic waste. The ground, the soils are filled with toxic chemicals, lead, brominated flame retardants, cadmium, dioxins, furans, all the toxic chemicals that cause a wide range of diseases, and is all the result of the illegal shipment and dumping of e-waste here by the industrialist countries.
There are international laws banning the export of electronic waste, but they can be sidestepped by labelling shipments usable second-hand goods. Some are resold, but the majority gets dumped here. The fire that's going on behind me is being burnt in order to get to the precious metals that's contained within plastic cabling. Now, we've been at this site for about an hour, and those fumes are already getting into our mouth, into our eyes, into our nose. And as I've said, we've just been here for an hour. Imagine what that is doing to people who've been here day in, day out for months, even years. People like 13-year-old Kaburi. He's been working at the dump for 5 years, on weekends and after school. He breaks old TV sets to get the aluminium frame. He can normally sell that for about 20 cents. And after buying food, he's already planned what he will do with the money.
I want to be a footballer, but right now as I'm standing here, I'm playing team. I want money to buy boots. That is why I'm standing here. If I get maybe 5 CD or 10 CD, I'll buy boots just here. I'll take it home. And I've been playing the football small. Maybe I'll be like Michael Essien or Lampard. That is what I'm doing.
The Ghanaian government has strongly condemned the illegal dumping of electronic waste here, but as yet has offered no solutions about how to clean up the problem. Katerina Vitozzi for CCTV in Accra, Ghana.
Oh, it's just sobering facts. So can we aspire to an environmentally green computing? Well, we certainly should have aspired to that. But while we get to that point, and there's no law that will force us to buy certain computers with the green tag, or that will force companies to think in those terms, or to avoid at all costs the dumping of and the expense being shipped to another nation that would pay the price for our usage. We certainly have to acknowledge that this is part of a system that gives us privileges that we are enjoying, you and me, not someone else out there. It's you and me enjoying those privileges, and it's part of our Western footprint and domination. We live in California, and the book brings to our attention something that is quite interesting and worth giving it a thought. And it is the fact that in California we have I wouldn't say schizophrenic, but certainly an ideology of competing ends and goals that are coming together and creating the immense powerhouse that it is the industry of computing in California. And on the one hand, we have this idealistic sense that the digital world would be a force for liberation, for democratization, force that will really provide opportunities to the many. And on the other hand, you have the most egregious and open desire for profit and the capitalistic ventures that are there. And that mesh of goals and views of life and world live together where we live, and it's worth for us to consider that it's happening right here in our backyard. So what is the anthropological critique to all of this? I guess the critique comes from the question that I have right there on screen. What is the true reach of globalization as a process? What is the true reach of globalization, the pros and the cons of globalization? So globalization refers to transnational processes fed by interconnecting state-sponsored high-tech industries in California and nation hubs, leaving large parts of the world out. So that's what a critical view of globalization is telling us. It is transnational processes that are interconnecting state-sponsored high-tech industries in California and Asian hubs. So our economy has a lot to do with what's going on in terms of globalization and our roads and our services and everything. So the critique is that by studying diverse digital worlds, we can show the true global cultural dynamics and show how these are far from being just Western defined or control or even control, but it is something that has more of a dual or multilateral dimension to it. We're reaping benefits of it, but in reality, it's a process that we're not the only ones driving, and so it takes a life of its own. And it shows when we looked into these digital ethnographies, we will get to see how diversity is taking shape in other parts of the globe, and certainly in the South. So what are these non-Western digital settings? In the reading for this month, and we're going to continue doing these readings, we have 2 to 3 examples. One is China, right? So China, it's an avid consumer of many of the things that are out there, but what's interesting is that the emphasis they have in their usage is to learn how to produce. So oftentimes you've heard histories of Chinese people going to places, and then I just heard the story not so long ago in Spain of a Chinese who came and talked to a I think it was a person that was doing wonderful work in pottery. And he said, we really would like to document all of this. We are a research team. We want to see how the process goes, and we would like to share this with the world. So they recorded the entire process. They learned everything that it was to be learned about how pottery was made. And after a few months, there was a version of that pottery happening in China and produced massively. So they come, they learn, they use the tools, and then they are ready to learn so they can produce. And it's a production powerhouse, China, and we know that very well. So in that sense, what happens in China shows that the globalization process, it has multiple sides and cultural flows. In the case of Bangladesh, we've learned in the chapter how the so-called phone ladies have redirected the use of technologies to other ends that were closer to what they needed in a very smart and interesting fashion. And then I also asked you to take a look at the BBC documentary and Codebreakers that shows the applications and uses of technology in the early days, because this is that documentary that was probably broadcasted 10 to 15 years ago, and you will notice in the screening of it, how there are not just contacts from from California to the rest of the world, but south to south they have lots of things going on right there that are interesting for us, and that is interesting for anthropology to explore. So you have, for example, as another pointing cases, the digital Muslim world, and they have applications and uses that are quite interesting to see. And certainly in recent times with the resurgence of the Islamic State, we have seen how they have mastered the use of media to communicate their ideas and to propagate and make advertising for their ideals. Then you have the case of the cannibalized phone that I'm gonna let you read, but it's an interesting case. And then all about the Indonesian digital world, which is another quite fascinating place where the digital has taken a life of its own. One thing we know after reading all these different cases is that future scenarios of the digital arena are certainly not univocally defined by the Western, but there will be multiple and they will be complex. So this is kind of a rhetorical question, right? So why should we care about tomorrow's digital dreams and the unfolding and unraveling maybe of the digital world? And as I was reading the book, I found this really interesting quote that it says, "Why should we care? Because that's what anthropologists do. They show that there are always various ways to address a problem that apparently the problem can even differ from one society to another. And as we take a look at the problem and at the issues on its complexity in a comparative manner, I think we're going to reach a better understanding of where we stand and where we want to be and where we would love to be or we would like the planet to be in the years to come. All right, I think that's it for now. Thank you for listening to this presentation patiently, and I look forward to our next session. Certainly the forms for this week and the exercise, and I'm looking forward to seeing your postings and your recordings as we continue exploring this complex and sometimes deep and multi-layered world of the digital. Sayonara.